Okay, we have surveys, experiments, and data. Now let's review some processes about each of these. We'll go over it, kind of discuss a couple things to go along with it. Okay, so surveys would be like, here's someone's asking you a question, you review it like here's a question, and never, rarely, sometimes, usually, or always. So then you just pick something based on how you feel about like the question, or do you do it or do you not do it? So how often do you listen to music while studying for a test? Something like this. Okay, in statistics, the process for making inferences about a population parameters based on a random sample from that population. Okay, so then just give you a couple examples here. Observational studies, experiments, surveys. Survey, like I said, is just a set of questions that you're being asked about something. So sometimes after, like maybe after a doctor's appointment, they give you a survey. Hey, can you rate your experience or tell us about your experience? Or sometimes after you've shopped at a store, they give you a little survey after it. Can you tell us your experience? So they're giving you questions like, how was it? How are things going? Something like that. Okay, so observational study, a statistical study in which data are observed and collected by researchers based on what is seen and heard over time. Okay, experiment, the statistical study in which a set of conditions is imposed upon subjects while the responses of subjects are studied. So an experiment, just some other things happening and going on. We're just trial and error pretty much. All right, so then the next part, sample, would be like the random people that you're picking, or just to say I'm picking a sample. There's 300 people, I'm going to pick 100 people or something like that. Population would be like the whole group. So say you have 25 kids in your class and there's a survey, they're going to survey 10 people, something like that. Okay, and this just kind of goes into a little bit more detail about it. Here's a conclusion. Inference is a conclusion you can base off something. Data is just giving you more information. Okay, treatment. Set of conditions imposed upon subjects in an experiment. Subjects would be people, animals, items, or something that's observed in the study. So that people, animals, items, cars, anything like that. Okay, just a little bit more detail. All right, statistical studies, and then we're just breaking it down a little bit more. Observational studies versus experiments. So then you have causation and correlation. Causation, an indication that one event is the result of or caused by the occurrence of another event. Correlation, a relationship between two random variables. So between two different things, there's some sort of like bond and or relationship. Now, like, why wouldn't you always conduct an experiment? There's reasons why you wouldn't always conduct an experiment. Sometimes you just can't. You just don't have the means or the ability to do so. So a survey or a study is what happens. Ethical reasons, maybe there's some beliefs, there's an undesirable side effect, something like that. Practicality, like I said, sometimes you just can't do it. It's too expensive, not possible based on where you're at. Say you're trying to do a study, you're at home and like the experiment that you like to do, you just don't have the means or the equipment to do it. Pre-existing condition, outside factors. So something else is going on that you can't have the experiment. Okay, now this question, you can just do this on your own. Let's read the definitions for these as well. Variable would be like something that's being tested in the experiment. The response variable from the subjects that's being observed is the result of treatments in an experiment. Then explanatory variable, a little different variable that's being tested. So then you have the control group, a group of subjects that receive zero amount of a variable. So they're not receiving a variable. The control group's not really doing anything. It's just there. So this is just going in depth about her experiment and what's going on with the different variables here. So we have this one, explanatory variable, response variable, And we have the control group and what is going on with the control group. Okay. Now the question here, well, if you do this question on your own, randomization and bias. Bias is a problem, basically, what the definition is saying. Because if somebody has views of one thing, say that you all have like a certain opinion and you take a survey, well, the survey is going to lean towards whatever that opinion was. So to get unbiased, you want to get like a little bit of mix of everything because then it truly gives a good representation of what is going on and truly represents the population. It's just not one opinion or the other. So here's the definition: a problem that presents itself when the sample selected to analyze fails to truly represent the population. Randomization, process of randomly choosing a sample. So just randomly picking people. Sampling plan, method used to choose the sample for a statistical study. Simple sample, random sample, um, sampling plan in which subjects are chosen from the frame in a random fashion. So just basically randomly choosing people again. So it's just basically talking about randomly choosing people. Here in non-biased, let's just kind of review these. Non-biased, when people are selected to take a survey, do not respond or return the survey. So, or non-response bias. That means that they're selected, they just don't do it. Under coverage, type of bias that results when the frame that the sample is selected from not accurately representing the population. Survey wording. Okay, so how is the survey worded? And here's some questions. Study environment. Did you have a good environment to take the survey? Have you do this on your own? Okay, so here, this just talks about experiment randomly placed treatment 1 versus treatment 2. Here's what's happening in this experiment. How would you design an experiment? What would you do? Here's some factors you take into consideration: time of day, understanding, different dynamics, stuff like that. Okay, this just gets more in depth with the experiments and how you're breaking it down. What are you doing to design your experiment? Same thing here, a technique called blocking would just be dividing potential experiment subjects into homogeneous groups to reduce the variation in the results caused by known factors. All right, and then here we have experiment men versus women, group 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6 right here. Just kind of gives you some more examples of an experiment broken down. Blinding. Blinding means when somebody does not know the specific treatment they're getting or receiving, they don't know what's going on. Placebo is like a fake treatment or artificial treatment or zero dose given to like the control group. So they're not getting anything. Double blinding is pretty interesting because the subject and the researchers involved in the experiment don't know how the treatments are being assigned. So they have no idea what's going on. So that's pretty interesting when you see an experiment done like that. Well, if you do this one on your own, drawing conclusions, basically, we're just kind of going over different experiments of what's going on here. Again, breaking it down just a little bit more. Questions, well, if you do the questions on your own as well, and hopefully that clears it up and just gives you a little bit better understanding. Kind of like briefly go through these. And yeah, hope you enjoyed.